I never thought running would change my life, but then again, I never thought I'd meet someone who could read my body like a book just by matching my stride. His name was Marcus, and the first time I noticed what he was doing, I was 3 miles into my usual morning route through Riverside Park, completely lost in my own head, trying to outrun the anxiety that had been eating at me for weeks. I'd been running alone for 2 years at that point. It was my therapy, my meditation, the 1 hour of the day where I didn't have to perform or pretend or be anyone but myself. I had my route memorized, every crack in the pavement, every tree that offered shade in the summer heat. I knew exactly where the path curved near the river, where the hill got steep enough to make my lungs burn, where I could finally coast and catch my breath. Running was predictable in a way nothing else in my life was, and I needed that predictability like I needed air. Marcus appeared on a Tuesday in early September. I noticed him because he had this effortless stride, the kind that made running look like floating. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark skin that caught the morning light, and he wore these bright blue running shorts that should have looked ridiculous but somehow didn't. He passed me on the first mile, and I remember thinking, of course, another runner who's faster than me, another reminder that I'm just average at this thing I love. But then something strange happened. About half a mile later, I caught up to him. He'd slowed down. Not in an obvious way, not like he was tired or hurt, but just enough that suddenly we were running parallel, maybe 10 feet apart. I didn't think much of it at first. People's paces vary. Maybe he was cooling down. Maybe he was enjoying the view of the river. I focused on my own breathing, on the rhythm of my feet hitting the ground, on trying to quiet the voice in my head that kept replaying last week's disastrous work presentation. Then I slowed down. My ankle had been bothering me, nothing serious, just a twinge that made me ease up a bit. And Marcus slowed down too, exactly the same amount. We were still parallel, still maintaining that 10-foot distance, but now we were both running at my reduced pace. That's when I first really looked at him, turned my head just enough to catch his profile. He was looking straight ahead, face calm, breathing steady, like he had nowhere else to be and nothing else to do but run at exactly my speed. It could have been coincidence. I told myself it was coincidence. The park was full of runners, and sometimes you just end up near someone for a while. But the next day, he was there again. Same time, same place, same bright blue shorts. This time, I decided to test it. I sped up deliberately, pushing myself harder than I normally would at that point in the run. My heart rate jumped, my breathing got ragged, but I maintained the faster pace for a solid quarter mile, and Marcus sped up too. Not to pass me, not to race, just to match me. We stayed parallel, 10 feet apart, moving in perfect synchronization. When I slowed back down, gasping a little, he slowed too. And that's when he turned his head and smiled at me. Not a big smile, not showy or flirtatious, just this small, knowing curve of his lips that said, yeah, I know what I'm doing, and yeah, I'm doing it on purpose. I should have been creeped out. Some stranger deliberately pacing me, following my every speed change, invading my sacred alone time. But I wasn't creeped out. I was curious, and maybe, if I'm being honest, a little thrilled, because nobody had paid that much attention to me in months. My ex, David, had left 6 months earlier, and I'd spent that whole time feeling invisible, like I was just going through the motions of life without anyone really seeing me. But Marcus was seeing me. He was watching me so carefully that he could match my pace to the second, could anticipate when I'd speed up or slow down, could read my body's rhythms like sheet music. On the third day, I stopped, just stopped running completely and stood there on the path, hands on my hips, breathing hard, staring at him. He stopped too, about 10 feet away, that same small smile on his face. "Are you following me?" I asked. My voice came out more confrontational than I'd intended, but I needed to know. I needed to understand what was happening. "No," he said simply. His voice was deep and warm, with a slight rasp that suggested he'd been running hard. "I'm running with you. There's a difference." I don't remember asking for a running partner. "You didn't." He took a few steps closer, closing the distance between us to maybe 5 feet. Up close, I could see that his eyes were this incredible shade of brown, almost amber in the morning light. "But you looked like you needed one. You've been running angry for weeks. I can see it in your stride. You're punishing yourself with every step." I felt something crack open in my chest. How did this stranger see what I'd been hiding from everyone, including myself? I had been angry. Angry at David for leaving, angry at myself for not being enough, angry at the world for being so goddamn hard all the time. And yes, I'd been taking it out on my body, pushing harder than I should, running through pain, using the physical exhaustion to drown out the emotional kind. "I don't even know you," I said, but my voice had lost its edge. "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand. "And you're the guy who runs this route every morning at 6:15, who always touches the oak tree at the 2-mile mark, who slows down on the hill but never walks, who looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders." I shook his hand. His grip was firm and warm, and he held on just a second longer than necessary. "I'm James," I said, "and that's a little creepy, honestly." He laughed, a real laugh that lit up his whole face. "Yeah, I know. Sorry. I'm a physical therapist. I can't help analyzing people's movements. It's an occupational hazard. But also, I've been wanting to talk to you for 3 weeks, and I couldn't figure out how to approach a guy who very clearly wants to be left alone." "So, you decided to silently pace me instead?" "I decided to meet you where you were," he said. "You weren't ready to talk, but maybe you were ready to not be completely alone. So I ran with you, at your speed, whatever speed that was." Something in his words hit me harder than I expected. I felt my eyes start to burn, and I turned away, pretending to stretch my calf. Whatever speed that was, not faster, not slower, not the speed Marcus thought I should be going. My speed. Exactly as I was. "Why?" I asked, still not looking at him. "Because I know what it's like," he said quietly. "To run like you're trying to escape your own skin. To push and push until you can't feel anything anymore. And I know what it's like when someone finally matches your pace, instead of trying to change it." I turned back to him then, and the look in his eyes was so open, so vulnerable, that I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't about flirtation or games, or even romance necessarily. This was about one human being recognizing pain in another and choosing to sit with it instead of trying to fix it or run from it. "Want to finish the route together?" he asked. "Like, actually together this time? We could talk. Or not talk. Whatever you need." I nodded, not trusting my voice. We started running again, side by side now, close enough that I could hear his breathing, could feel the heat radiating off his body. We didn't talk for the first mile. We just ran, and it felt different than running alone, different than running with David used to feel. David had always pushed me to go faster, to train harder, to hit new personal records. He'd loved me, I think, but he'd loved the version of me that was always striving, always improving, always reaching for more. Marcus just ran with me. When I sped up, he sped up. When I slowed down, he slowed down. When I needed to stop and catch my breath, he stopped too, without judgment, without checking his watch, without that subtle impatience that David had never quite been able to hide. "I went through a breakup," I said finally, as we hit the 3-mile mark. The words came out in gasps, broken up by my breathing. 6 months ago, I thought I was over it, but I'm not. I'm so not over it. "Breakups are brutal," Marcus said. His breathing was easier than mine, more controlled. "Especially when you lose yourself in someone else, and then have to figure out who you are without them." "Exactly," I said, and felt relief flood through me. He got it. He actually got it. David and I were together for 4 years. We had this whole life planned out. And then one day, he just said he didn't see a future with me anymore. Just like that. 4 years, gone. "That's not about you," Marcus said. "That's about him not knowing what he wanted." "Maybe, but it feels like it's about me, like I wasn't enough." We ran in silence for a while. The sun was higher now, warming the air, making the river sparkle. Other runners passed us, and I realized we'd become one of those pairs, the ones who run together every morning, who have their own rhythm and pace that doesn't need to accommodate anyone else. "I was engaged," Marcus said suddenly. 3 years ago, guy named Tyler. We'd been together since college. I thought he was it, the one. And then I got sick. Nothing life-threatening, just bad enough that I couldn't work for a few months, couldn't take care of myself the way I usually did. and Tyler couldn't handle it. He said he'd signed up to be with the strong, capable version of me, not the weak one who needed help. Jesus, I breathed. That's awful. Yeah, it was, but it also taught me something important. The right person doesn't just love you when you're at your best. They love you at your worst pace too. They match you, wherever you are. I looked over at him, really looked at him, and saw the scars beneath the surface. The hurt he'd carried and somehow transformed into this incredible capacity for empathy. He'd been running with me, matching my pace, because someone had failed to do that for him, and he'd decided to be different, to be better. Thank you, I said, for seeing me, for not trying to fix me. You don't need fixing, Marcus said. You just need time, and maybe a running partner who won't let you run yourself into the ground. We finished the route together, and when we got back to the parking lot, Marcus pulled out his phone. Can I give you my number? No pressure, but if you want to run together again tomorrow, I'll be here. Same time, same place, whatever pace you need. I took his number, and the next morning I showed up, and so did he. We ran together, sometimes talking, sometimes silent, always in sync. Over the weeks, I started to notice things about him. The way he laughed with his whole body. The way he always remembered little details I'd mentioned days before. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, like I was something precious and worth protecting. My pace started to change, not because Marcus was pushing me, but because I was healing. The angry, punishing runs became easier, more joyful. I started to remember why I'd fallen in love with running in the first place, not as an escape, but as a celebration of what my body could do. And Marcus was there for all of it, matching every new pace, every shift, every change. 6 weeks after we started running together, I finally worked up the courage to ask him if he wanted to grab coffee after our run. He said yes before I'd even finished the question. We sat in a corner booth at this tiny cafe near the park, both of us still in our running gear, sweaty and gross and somehow perfect. We talked for 3 hours, about everything, about nothing, about the way life breaks you open, and somehow that's where the light gets in. When he walked me to my car, he hesitated, his hand on my arm. I need to tell you something, he said. I didn't just start running with you because I recognized pain. I started running with you because from the first moment I saw you, I couldn't look away. And I know the timing might not be right. I know you're still healing, but I'm not going anywhere. Whatever pace you need, James, I'm here. I kissed him, right there in the parking lot, with the morning sun warming our faces and the sound of other runners' feet hitting the pavement around us. I kissed him, and it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been before. That was 8 months ago. Marcus and I still run together every morning. Sometimes I'm faster, sometimes he is. Sometimes we both struggle and have to walk parts of the route. But we're always together, always matching each other, always willing to adjust our pace to meet the other person where they are. I learned something from Marcus, something I don't think I'd understood before. Love isn't about finding someone who makes you better or pushes you to be your best self. Love is about finding someone who meets you exactly where you are, who matches your pace even when it's slow, who sees you struggling and chooses to struggle alongside you rather than running ahead. The right person doesn't try to speed you up or slow you down. They just run with you, stride for stride, breath for breath, until one day you realize you're not running away from anything anymore. You're running towards something, together,